Another Mentors for Military podcast coming at you from 15 Perry Street. And got my sidekick next to me, Paul Martinez.
Hey, everybody.
And we're going to get into another episode here with Angie. Angie, first off, thanks for traveling all this way and being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to get into your background, and I didn't know too much about it. I just love what you're doing now. But I want to take us back, and you maybe tell me a little bit about the very beginnings, and then we'll jump into the now and some of the cool stuff that you're doing here now and stuff. So, is North Carolina always been home for you? Because
no, I am from New York.
And you said that earlier. I forgot to mention that because Paul now lives in New York. He's not. He'll make sure he'll tell you
live there?
He's not from New York.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I've been asking myself.
I'm questioning your character right now.
So, Paul, why do you live there?
Well, long story short, I used to have a cattle ranch. I'm not a very good rancher. It went under. But I also had a book deal, and my publisher was in New York, and they said, we don't do national book tours, but you can get the same exposure if you're here. So a lady that I had shopped horses with in New York had a cottage and a horse that came with it. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do this for a little while. I'll do my regional book tour. And, I've got a horse to ride right next to a state park. So that's how it started. But then I got involved in the different equine foundations out there that help veterans. And the concentration of veterans in New York and Long Island is extremely high. So it's a small area, but there's tons of vets. So it's easy to access them and get them out to do what I love, which is, horses and vets. So I had opportunities to help out with places like Warrior Ranch and Equine Immersion Project, and a good buddy of mine is probably the best harness trainer in the world. So we go to Yonkers Racetrack or Meadowlands, and we take the vets out on the post parade, and they're real racehorse, real race cart out on a real racetrack.
That's
and
cool.
It's just freaking cool. So
Long Island areas where you're at then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm from Buffalo.
Oh, okay.
So it's not as cold where you're at as Buffalo. Yeah, I think that's why I hate it so much.
Yeah, well, Buffalo, it's basically Canada, right?
Yeah.
It's the Arctic.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
thank you.
crazy cold up there.
The food is amazing.
Really?
And that is literally the only good thing besides my family that is like in New York. Like when I go home, I'll gain like 10 pounds. I just crush all the pizza and wings. Like New York food is so good.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I have to attest to that.
Yeah. And down south, it's like you can't find good pizza and wings to save your life.
I found some good wings, but definitely not pizza.
Yeah, well, it depends, I guess, what kind of pizza you like.
Real pizza.
What true. I would agree with you. I actually don't really care for deep dish and prefer
not pizza.
New York style pizza. I mean, there's just something about that. The sauce is very different. The texture, the taste, I don't know. So, it's sort of like Pepsi Coke.
Yeah.
New York pizza.
Yep.
Can't go
Bagels
wrong.
and pizza.
I mean, if I find a local establishment that really pumps up New York, and not only that, but New York pizza style pizza, and that they came from there, whatever, I'm buying that pizza.
Yeah.
You've got a customer in me. That's
your best bet.
There's a place in Raleigh. It's called Buffalo Bros, and like guys from Buffalo that are from like my area, they own it. I guess they own a couple around, I don't know, down south somewhere. And they have everything shipped in from Buffalo. So like the wings and everything.
Really?
I don't know how I haven't gone yet, but I've heard like really good things about it.
Do they make like their own dough and everything? Or
I guess it's just like they have everything shipped in from Buffalo and they do it like all the same. Yeah.
I mean, if you want it to taste like the original, you've got to get it, the raw materials from the source.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't use local stuff. It's probably going to taste like North Carolina pizza.
Cardboard.
Papa Murphy's.
Yeah.
So New York is home, and what did make you go into the Army?
Oh man,
Getting out of Buffalo. I mean, that's most of our story.
I always wanted to leave, and I never wanted to go to college. I just was not that kid. I was, smart mouthed, into sports and horses, and I feel like my teachers just passed me because they didn't want to hear me anymore. So I was like, I'm not going to go to college, waste my parents' money, and probably drop out. So it was always, the plan was just to go into the military. So I did.
Always? Wait, you said a plan always?
Yeah, from like freshman year, I was like, I'm going to go into the military. And that was just, I was stuck on it. So
What caused that? Family member or something?
No, my great grandpa, he was the only one in our family that's been in the military. So nobody else has been in the military.
Just something you saw on TV? I'm sorry, I'm just curious.
No, you're good. I don't even really know. I think it was just the whole military thing. Like, I was always a tomboy and very rough and tough and hanging out with the guys. And so the military, I was just drawn to it. It was so exciting. I was like, just that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like my family would be so proud of me and this would be so badass. Like, I was just all about it.
I think what's so fascinating is that, and that's the reason why I kept like going in that direction. But we all come from different walks of life. And it's one of the best things I loved about the military, because I can now tell my children of times where, it didn't matter what ethnicity, background, country, whatever, religion, we came together.
Yeah.
And then when you sit back, and it's years later and you're a veteran and we're having these types of conversations, it's just interesting to hear that beginning. What was that trigger moment? What was that thing that caused you to go in? And everybody has a similar but different. I mean, I think probably everybody in this room had this thing of, well, at least the three of us, I can't remember Paul, but getting the heck out of where we were. I mean,
yes.
Where else can you go to have exposure to everybody, literally a microcosm of the entire country?
I forgot to introduce you, Kelly.
I'm Kelly, folks.
Yeah, Kelly Roby.
Yeah, I mean, where else can you go where every different ethnicity, everything is in the military? There's no real place like that if you just get out and you're a civilian. You don't really experience that. And I liked it because it's apolitical, right? Mm-hmm. There's none of that drama. You're all working towards that shared experience or purpose.
I don't know if they still do, but back in the day it was, we're all green. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So forget all that other stuff. You're green right now,
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. I remember, obviously, I'm sure you guys did too, but like going right after high school and stuff, when you're in high school, you pick your friends by like who's cool and who wears this. Yeah. And it was so funny, like my closest friends in boot camp. And then like after we graduate, like seeing the way that they dressed and stuff. And I was like, wow, like I never would have probably talked to you or hung out with you based off of that. Like, I'm an asshole. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. It really opens your eyes as to like who you really want to surround yourself with based off of like their personality and their character, and who you'd surround yourself with in high school just based off of like popularity and stuff. Like, it was wild to me. It was really like eye opening.
Yeah. I mean, you got crazy cool tats, by the way.
Thank you.
But that would be sometimes an identifier of, oh, yeah, she's a tat girl.
Yeah, my mom says I look like a lesbian.
How does she correlate one with the other?
I don't know, but that was her thing. Was when I got it, she was like, "You're in the Army, you have a sleeve and a bunch of other tattoos, and you drive a truck. People are going to think you're a lesbian." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, so be it, Mom." Yeah, cool.
Did you have any before you came in?
Yeah, I had like a few, like on my side and my feet and stuff like that. But then, yeah, after I joined, that's when I got pretty heavy into it.
I've heard, of course, Paul, you have a bunch. Yeah, it's quite addictive. Do you have any, Kelly? I didn't ask.
I have the regretful tattoo on my shoulder.
Oh.
I have a Grateful Dead tattoo on my right shoulder.
Oh, it's not as bad as mine would have been. It would have been a Tasmanian devil, which is what I wanted to get when I was 18 years old.
I think you should
Could you
still
imagine?
get it.
Yeah.
I think it's not too late, Rob.
That's stupid as all get out, though. Could you imagine?
Nobody sees it except my kids, and they don't know what it is. So it's just a blob. Now, at this point, I should probably get it retouched up, but it's kind of pinkish.
Or covered over, yeah.
Kind of blue.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Looks like a prison tat now.
Prison
Just tell everybody that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go.
Get you some street credit.
Especially when you take your shirt off at the pool with the dad bod.
Yeah, I don't do that. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
All right, so you end up going to the Army. What did you end up going into? What MOS?
Yeah, so I was a truck driver at
88
first.
Mike.
Yeah, and then in 2013 or 2014, when I was deployed is when they started opening up combat MOSs to females. So I re-enlisted, and I was one of the first females to go into the field artillery. So then,
Cool.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I absolutely loved it.
Okay, so did you had to go back to AIT with regular trainees, or were you guys put in a different cycle?
Yeah, no. So there was quite a few guys that were also doing the same thing as I was, like reclassing, and then we were also in with brand new. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting. It was definitely a lot more fun than when I originally went through AIT because, I'd already been deployed, like all this stuff. So, all the cadre, they're super cool with you. You don't have to follow the same rules. It's just kind of.
What rank were you at that time? E4?
Yeah, I was at E4. Yep.
Now, when you said you got to go back, though, you didn't have to go through the basic training because it's usually one station unit training. So whenever they finished that first segment, then you rolled in. Yeah.
Well, so the Army, the way that they do it now is a lot of times like they're in like South Carolina and sometimes Oklahoma and stuff, but it's different. They wouldn't stay with the same cadre from basic training into AIT. You go to basic training and then you'd go like to a different.
I thought artillery is combat arms, right? So
yeah, but I think
station unit training.
Infantry is like the only one that does that, where it's
Armor
like rolled straight through.
No, you don't know.
I don't know.
I know when I went through armor was one station unit training. So it was again you just stayed with the same drill sergeants for
like when
14,
I went through
16 weeks.
2010, it wasn't like that. Only infantry was the only one that I knew about.
I don't think my wife was intel, and I don't think. I don't know. It may have been the same base, but it was not all the same. Like when they went to their AIT for Intel school or whatever.
Yeah.
It was different.
Yeah. So you had to go through the AIT portion of this whole thing as an E4. Were you then the only female in that as well?
So they had just started bringing females through. So like ones that had enlisted for that job. So it was like, very interesting because there was obviously no female cadre. And so all the male cadre were like, hey, you need to fix these females' hair. Like, you need to do this. And I was like, that's not my job. Like,
oh, that's right. Because
I was the only one. So,
E4.
So I was like, okay, like, whatever. So they wouldn't take them to the shopette to get like gel. So I'm like going out, collecting money from them, going and buying them gel and like, giving them classes on how to do their hair. I'm like, how did you not learn this in basic training? So then the sergeant major that was there, he was trying to get my orders changed to make me cadre because he was like, obviously now that we have females coming in, like we need female cadre.
Like right out of AIT, you're already working on it. Like when you're done, you're going to stay.
Yeah, they wanted me to. And thankfully that did not happen. And I went to Fort Bragg. And that's where I spent the rest of my time.
Well, at Fort Bragg, did you get 82nd?
No, so I was a 13 Mike, that's the MLRS, and they don't have those in the 82nd. So we were 18th Fires Brigade.
MLRS is the rocket shooter thing.
Yeah, so you can't really be, there's no point in you being airborne because obviously, you can't really drop the whole truck out of there. So,
Why not?
I don't know. Send it,
too
right?
heavy?
Yeah.
Well, they used to do Shermans, right?
They can drop tanks. They could do it. They just don't need to.
Yeah.
Maybe they just drop you in and then the vehicle shows up.
Well, they do some cool stuff. They'll like put you in the plane and then they'll like land and put it down and be driving and you drive off at the same time and then they just fly off.
Cool.
Yeah. So they do some cool stuff.
Did you get to do that?
I did not get to do that, no.
All right.
I wish.
So you arrive at Fort Bragg. I'm assuming you're one of the few females then.
Yep, I was the only female that was like in field artillery. There was, what is it, like, I forget what it's even called, like the 42 alphas and stuff like that, paperwork, like there was females.
Admin.
Yeah, of that. But I was the first one there and it was awesome. I loved it because there was no drama. And then as the females started like rolling in more and more, I was like, okay, now I understand why they don't want us in the combat arms because you guys ruin basically everything.
Really?
Yes.
Why'd you feel that way? Yeah, how so?
I feel like it's just a certain type of female that really is meant for that. Like obviously females can physically do it, mentally do it, but a lot of the females that come in, they did it because it sounded cool. And then they get there and they don't want to actually do the work. So then they start being cute and getting out of stuff and, the drama, and it's just like, okay, you're giving everybody a bad name by doing this. So it just.
Would you pull them aside?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Were you an E5 at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was frustrating because it's like, you can be respected by just being one of the guys. Like, they're going to respect you more if you do the right thing. You don't get out of doing hard work because you're a female. You know, like, there's ways around it, but a lot of females don't go about it the right way. So that was very frustrating.
Did it make you, I'm just curious, at that time frame, because things were opening up, did it make you think about maybe going into the soft community?
I wanted to.
Where maybe you would be, again, a trailblazer, but in a very different way, but maybe around males who it's just more about, are you carrying your weight? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And they really don't care from the most part. You know, they don't care.
Yeah. No, I always wanted to do all the gung-ho stuff. Like, I was drinking all the Kool-Aid when I was in. Like, I was all about it. So that was always a plan of mine. I didn't know what I wanted to do, whether it be CA or PSYOP, stuff like that. And then when they started opening it up, like SF for females. But when I was at Fort Campbell is when they opened up Ranger School to females. So I was in 2nd Brigade, and I started doing like the Ranger PT program and all that stuff. And it was when I re-enlisted or something. My mom came down, and my sergeant major was talking to my mom about me going to Ranger School and how like they had me on the list and how they were so proud. And then I found out that I had to shave my head. So I was like, oh, Sergeant Major, like, I'm not going to go anymore. So I had to go see my brigade Sergeant Major and explain to him why I was like not going to go.
But let's talk about that for a moment.
Hold on, they're still doing that? Like, they did that? They made them shave their heads?
Yeah.
Why?
Because, I mean, the guys have to shave their heads, so...
Because.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It doesn't
Paul.
make any sense.
Yeah, but I was like, I'm not doing that shit. Like,
Yeah, but if you didn't think about it, if they didn't, then they're not going through the exact same thing that the guys are. So the guys there would be like, well, she gets to leave her hair out. How come I couldn't leave my hair out? You know?
I mean, sure.
But let's...
yeah, I'm with you.
For women, it is a bit different about hair.
Yeah.
I mean, me, I'm probably one of these guys, like, I'd rather have a bald head, shaved head. It's just easier to maintain. I don't have to worry about it. It's too much to worry about the style, you know? And
I would. I did it last summer and freaked my kids and my wife out. They're like, don't do that again, please.
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
have very
"But it's
nice
so
hair."
I was going to say, you got awesome hair.
It was really long, and I was cutting it, and we were going somewhere, and I'm like, I'll just take it all off. And I was like, whoa,
Wow.
that makes my face look really round. My wife was like, don't, just grow your hair back, please.
Wear a hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it is very different. Well, true. I always wear a hat because it doesn't show the gray nearly as much, especially if I don't have a beard, which is mine.
I embrace it. The gray.
Yeah, I don't embrace it. Anyway, so the hair with women and stuff, it's very different though, right?
Yeah.
But what was it? I mean, was it just that it'll grow back? That's the way I look at it.
I don't know. I've just, obviously I have like very long hair. I've always had long hair that's just, I don't know. I couldn't get past that. And it was, to me, I wasn't like passionate about it. Like, oh, I want to be a ranger. It was just like, I wanted to prove that, I was a badass and that chicks could do it. That's why I wanted to do it. It had nothing to do with like me really being passionate about it. So I was like, I'm not going to shave my hair off when look at how many guys fail. I was just like, that's a no for me.
So what you saw is, I'm going to be there 4 weeks, shave my head, and then I'm going to have to come back and grow it all out.
Hell no. Yeah. That was a hard no for me.
It's not so much the shaved head part. I think it would be the growth after.
Yeah, I
like
just
that
like
weird phase before it looks
the
like
whole thing.
Yeah,
The whole thing. So I just sat there and getting like reamed out about like how, they thought that it was bullshit. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's bullshit. Got it. Like, still not doing it. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So
How many years did you end up spending then total? Because you said you went to Bragg and then
7.
Campbell. 7? Okay.
Yeah. I got diagnosed with a heart disease. So yeah. So they obviously wouldn't let me stay in, and that's why I got out. I would have stayed in full 20, easy.
Easy?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that's why I've kind of started doing what I'm doing now, because like a lot of people, you get out of the military and that's all I ever wanted to do. So, I was like, I felt so good about myself and my family was so proud and all this. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do? And I was married, we moved from Fort Bragg to South Carolina, and he got like a weird instructor job at a college.
Like ROTC type
Yeah,
thing?
it was like a weird, the patent fellowship or something. It was when they
I've
were.
never heard of that. Have you?
So they took white infantry officers and sent them to historically black colleges to try and recruit more, I guess, people into combat arms. It was a whole program on it, and he got like a master's degree out of it and like all of this stuff off of this program. Yeah, it was like a big push for a while. So that's why we went to South Carolina. And I remember being like, okay, well, I have to get a job. Like, what do I do? So I was trying to get a job, and it was like my almost 8 years in the military meant absolutely nothing. But yet, like, everything was like, oh, you need a 2-year degree in literally anything, and you can have this job. But, you're 8 years in the military. That doesn't mean anything. Like, that's no good here. So I was like, wow, I literally can't get a job because I don't have a degree. So it just like blew my mind. I was like, how is it that military members can give up so much of their time and their life, and like, look at my resume versus somebody who's gone to college. Like, look at everything that I've done and been in like control over. But yet you're going to tell me I can't have a job because I don't have a 2-year degree in literally anything. So that's when I started going to college online, and I was like working at a car dealership and just hating my life. Then I got pregnant and had my daughter, and I just did kind of like the stay-at-home mom thing for a little bit. And then it was like a year and a half ago, last November, I got the opportunity to buy the place that I have now. I used my VA loan, and I bought my house, and it's got like 40 acres. So
You say 40? Mm-hmm. Wow.
yeah. So I bought that, and then I turned it into a business, and then I just still wasn't happy. So
A business how? What was a...
so it's mainly horse boarding, and then also do some like training, sales, lessons, excuse me, things like that. And I had it listed as a horse hotel because I'm like right on 95. So people going from like Florida to New York all the time. So
40, not all 40 acres are for the horses. You probably have, I'm assuming, or are they? So are they all fenced in for the horses, or is it like maybe 5-10 acres? No. Okay.
No, yeah, it's like all fenced in. There's probably maybe 3 or 4 that's like in the woods, and I'm not using right now, but the rest of it, it's just like massive pastures, and I've got a riding arena, round pens. Now I've got like a little Mustang barn going on and everything for that. So.
And so that's how it all started. You just decided, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And
yeah.
the 40 acres, was it, you just bought it like as taking a loan out and that type of thing? Or did you
I
use
used my VA loan.
I was going to, okay. Yeah.
Was it already set up for horses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It was pretty much set up how I needed it. I just started boarding, and then once I started making some money, that's when I started, doing like the fine tuning to things that I wanted. But I still wasn't happy. It's just like that drive to do something. I was like, okay, I love horses. That's like my other passion besides being in the military. That's why I did it. But I was like, I am not passionate about dealing with people and their horses. Horse people are crazy. You know this, Paul.
Tell me.
Horse people are insane.
I mean, I was in a family that raised horses, but then we also boarded horses and stuff as well. But that was a long time ago. I don't remember the crazy people part.
Oh, yeah.
It's got,
You might have been part of the problem.
I mean, think about somebody who like still drives a Model T every day, Like it's kind of like that. Like
I see those people.
You got to be you got to be passionate.
Yeah.
And they can be very...
You're saying intense... when you say crazy, you're like intensely passionate about...
Sometimes, sometimes.
But there's like both ends of the spectrum, especially for boarding. So I have like the people who are, very intense and very like, oh my gosh, this horse kicked my horse. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, they're horses. Like, that's literally what they do. Like, what do you want me to do about it? I can't do anything. And then I also have people that like should not have horses, that I am the one that is paying to get their horses' feet done, and they're not paying their board, and you know what I mean? So it's like,
You're more worried about the animal than they are.
Yeah. Like Ryan all the time, he's like, you're doing this to yourself. And I'm like, but I have to, because I can't, like, as who I am, let this horse suffer because their owner sucks. He's like, well, kick them out. But if I kick them out, where are they going to go? Yeah. They're going to go somewhere that somebody's not going to care, and they're not going to get their feet done, and they're not going to get taken care of. And that's just going to be what it is, you know? Yeah. So it's like,
yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, it's a struggle.
And then they end up in a,
kill
few years
pen
down the line, they're in a kill pen. So it's just, I don't know.
So you raised horses, though, growing up, because you mentioned horses in the very beginning. But going back to that, you just didn't find that as your passion, just doing it as raising horses and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was in the Army, I had my horses. I was still barrel racing and like involved in horses. And then even like when we were in South Carolina and I had my daughter, like I'd always had my horses still. But
what was not satisfying? What did you?
I don't know. It's like hard to explain. I was just like missing it, if that makes sense. Like I just could tell that something was missing, and it was like.
Because I think a lot of people get off active duty, and that's what they do is they go to something that's comfortable to them, like, I was on a farm, I raised horses, I did this, and they think that's going to bring them joy. What I'm hearing is that you did that, and you just didn't.
It didn't. Yeah, it did in the beginning,
you.
And then I was like, okay, this is not it. I'm still, I guess, chasing that feeling of like being in and feeling like I'm doing something and making a difference. So that's when, I finally like took the leap into starting my nonprofit because, Mustangs have always been like a big thing for me. I love them, like the history of them, Spirit got all of us little girls started on Mustangs.
Well, are they everything of what you hear? I mean, wild, crazy,
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like, that's because they're like the purest, truest form of a horse. You know what I mean? Like they have like all their horse senses that they should have. It's not because they're mean. It's just because they're scared. They don't know, they're out, they're wild, they're free, living their best life. And then out of nowhere, these helicopters come in and, split them up from their family. And like herd is everything for
you're
horses.
Painting one of those commercials that, donate $100 a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad.
I mean, it is sad.
It's sad. Like if you look into these roundups, like so many horses die during these roundups because they will push them with these helicopters for like over 20 miles. So like the older ones, the younger ones, like they break legs. They just literally, their hearts give out. They die. Like there's like around like 20 horses in this push in Nevada that just happened a couple months ago that like died. So it's like, it's so sad. And then they do that. They split them all up from their herd, their family. And now they're in these like tiny, crappy holding facilities. And they're just going to live their life there in hopes of getting adopted. And I mean, a lot of people don't have the time, the knowledge, or the want to take these quote unquote crazy horses and make them into something. So, I mean, it's
or if
so
they do,
sad.
maybe it goes back to the horse people that you were talking about earlier that may just not understand that they are not horse people. They shouldn't be doing it, and especially if you're doing a Mustang.
Yeah, I mean, all the time you hear about, so they're supposed to be, I don't even really know, I need to know more about it with the Mustangs going to the kill pens. Like they're supposed to be protected. It's like the first time they go or something and they're protected, but then after that,
Mustangs,
they're not. But there's a lot of people who will go buy a bunch of these Mustangs at the holding facilities because the ones out west, it's like $125 for your first Mustang. Then it's like $25 or $50 for every Mustang after that.
Which is cheap, right?
So cheap.
Yeah.
So cheap.
That's what you get paid for it?
Yeah, that's what you pay.
That's what you pay. You pay BLM.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
You pay them $125 and you get this horse. So these people go and load up trailers full and then just drive across Mexico and kill them. Like there used to be like 2.5 million wild Mustangs. And now, right now, with the Mustangs and burros, it's like around like 90,000. But I mean, they were just like completely like slaughtered off, and it still happens.
Are they still using horses for glue? I'm maybe showing some of my ignorance
I don't
here.
know,
I-
honestly.
What are they killing
Couldn't
them
tell
for?
you.
What's the purpose?
Meat,
Meat, yeah.
hides,
Eat?
leather.
Yeah.
Like meat? Meat, really?
Dog food.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. There was, like, back when I was in high school, we had to do this project on, like, McDonald's and stuff. And, like, almost every fast food restaurant where they tested the meat, there was horse in the meat.
I've heard.
Really?
That,
Yeah.
Well, there's stuff that's in your meat that the USDA allows a certain
Yeah.
percentage of.
Yeah.
And let's just leave it at that. There are probably things that's best left unknown.
Well, they are
No more burgers. They did.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but I guess you have to look at it from both ends. You know, with Mustangs, it's the ranchers hate them. So technically they're like an invasive species because they were brought over by the Spanish. So they're not like a natural species in America. So that's kind of how they get their way around it, is like, oh, they're an invasive species. Like, they're feral horses. They're not like, they haven't always been here. So they don't really have a lot of natural predators that kind of take them out and kind of keep them where they should be. So the ranchers don't want the Mustangs out on the ranges that is for their cattle. So it's like, that's when they started rounding them up, because a lot of ranchers were just slaughtering these horses because they didn't want to deal with it.
I wonder, you know, a lot of times people would make these types of decisions in a vacuum, and they don't understand the, you know, ecocycle and what perhaps taking Mustangs out of the environment could potentially do.
Yeah.
You know, because you take a species out, then that means that something's going to change.
Yeah, something's going to fill that void or continue to grow or whatever. I mean, there's some level of control they must have on the environment. I mean, besides just affecting the cattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would think.
It's a multifaceted problem, because on the one hand, this is a uniquely American species. This is the only place where this occurs. And so I think, like, that's the West. That's the cowboy.
Yeah.
America is the Mustang. It's just integral to that. And I think there's something beautiful and special about that, and they should be preserved. On the other hand, they don't have enough natural predators, so then they overpopulate. And then you have, you know, starvation in the wintertime and a lack of resources for them, so they need to be managed like any other population.
Yeah.
And then, you know, just as much as the Mustang, you know, cattle ranchers out west, that's, you know, you can't just take that away either. So it's there's all these things. There's what do you do that's good for this animal population? What do you do that's good for these
like
other
damned
industries?
if you do, damned if you don't type
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, nobody's ever happy.
Yeah, and then,
see,
and
somebody-
then what do you do with them once they're rounded up? Like what's the purpose? So I think that's
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm trying to come in, you know, is like these horses, they can't help themselves. You know what I mean? There's literally nothing that they can do for themselves. So it's like we have to do something for them. And that's really the only way around it. So there's a lot of like programs that are, you know, designed to help Mustangs and stuff, which is awesome. But
Well, that's maybe where I want to take this too, because I think what you've done is you've taken what you've just described as an animal who has now been taken out of its environment, that's you know, taken away from its family, going through serious trauma, that is making a transition to some type of new lifestyle wherever it may be. And it just so happens they land on your ranch with 40 acres, which is probably, you know, they hit the gold mine here, but, you know, instead of a small little half acre, quarter acre, you know, type of thing where they may die of malnutrition or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But they come there, and I think this is a great transition into, through that, it's very similar to you taking a veteran who's coming off active duty, who may feel broke, or other people have told that individual, like we were talking about, Kelly, about being broke, and you're marrying the two together.
Yep. So my nonprofit is a lot different than what like Paul does a lot with his equine therapy. So most equine therapy programs, it's like you come and you like spend a lot of time with tame horses and you brush them and ride them and do all that, where mine is like a very unique, like hands-on approach where, you know, this struggling veteran is going to be paired up with the struggling Mustang, and you two are going to figure it out together.
Do you try to find like-minded personalities between the two?
So the plan is going to be that like whoever gets selected for the program, that I want to be able to take them and kind of let them pick out their Mustang, like whatever one they kind of feel a connection with will be theirs. So then they'll take that Mustang and they'll work with it, and they do the entire generaling process. Obviously, you know, I guide them through it and, you know, explain some stuff, tell them to watch this video, read this book, like give them the knowledge that they need, because a lot of people that are doing it, they're not horse people, which is perfectly fine. But then, you know, they do that healing process together, and they learn to like trust each other and come together, and it's really amazing to like watch it happen, you know? And you learn a lot from horses that you can use in everyday situations. Like when you're working with a Mustang and you're not getting to where you want to get and you start getting frustrated, you need to realize immediately when you get frustrated so that you can walk away, calm down, and come back at it and try it again. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, once you do that enough, you become so in tune with yourself that you can start using that at home. When you start getting frustrated with your wife, your kids, whatever, you can learn to like, okay, I'm starting to feel this way. Let me take a step back, breathe, figure it out, and come back at it with like a fresh mind. Everything's good, and we'll go from there. Because, you know, you can't manhandle it. Like I've gone through this with Ryan so many times where he will be just like dying out there, and he's like, I'm gonna fucking win this. Like I'm gonna make it happen. And I'm like, dude, you've already lost. Like get out of there. Like you cannot manhandle this Mustang into doing what you want it to do. Like it's gonna kill you. And it doesn't work that way. Like that's not how you win. You know, you win by like letting that Mustang trust you and you trusting it, and you guys like coming together from that. You cannot force these horses to do what you want them to do. So it's really cool.
It's wicked cool.
Yeah.
It's really.
And it's like the perfect amount of danger too for veterans. Like
it reminds me of dogs so much. Like, I mean, your emotions travel down a leash, especially the kind of dogs we were talking about earlier with Malinois and stuff. And it's, I mean, you're like you said it perfectly. If you're at that point, you've already lost.
Yeah.
Like just stop wasting your time. Like take a break. Because
you're only gonna like, especially with horses, you know, you push them to a certain point and you've just lost any amount of trust that you might have built up to that point. So it's like, you have to realize that before you do that. And it's the same with a relationship. You know, you have to realize that you're about to say some shit that you can't take back. Yeah. You know, and you have to walk away, and just like, you know, it gives you a lot of confidence too, and like a sense of purpose and like all of these things when you can like just do these things with these horses. Like these horses that have never been touched by people, when they like trust you enough to come up to you and like let you love on them and like do that stuff. Like it's the most amazing thing ever. So
I completely agree. Yeah. That's why I do it, because you get to see this. You can see the emotional release in somebody, because you can't lie to a horse.
Exactly.
If you've got something pent up inside you, they know, because they're picking up on pheromones, your heartbeat, everything, because they're herd animals. So like, all right, what's going on with this animal next to me? Just like and the canines are very similar. And I think I always tell people it's a perfect amount of danger. It's critical. You got to do it, or you're going to get hurt, and you got to do it right. Yeah. You have to be here, present in the moment. Yeah. Because if you're thinking about Iraq or Afghanistan, or you're thinking about something you messed up in your career or your home life or whatever, that's when it's dangerous, because you're not picking up on the cues the animal's giving to you, and that you end up, you know, in a bad spot. You can get injured. So it's it's critical, because you gotta keep this thing alive. Like it's a living thing, and I think we all have that in us as a veteran. Like we believe in preservation of life and taking care of, you know, the other living beings around us. It just used to be our buddies. So it's a very unique blend. It's a nice way to access things that you can't access just by talking to a shrink, or you know.
Well, tell me like, okay, I'm arriving there. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to expect. Maybe you did send me a video or tell me to read a book or whatever, but I'm walking in the door, still not sure if this is really going to work, you know, but I'm willing to give it a go, you know, maybe Kelly told me about it, and he had a great experience. But I'm walking in the door kind of blind and not knowing what to expect. Are you going to make me feed this animal? Are you going to make me live with this animal? Are you what am I?
So that is the goal right now. Obviously, the way that I have everything set up, it's it's where I live. I have my functioning business out of there. So this is something that I'm just starting up. But the plan is going to be to have like bunk houses and stuff like that so that people can live there, because I want it to be like a 14-week program. Like you come and you stay here.
What, 14? Why 14?
Because, I mean, these are wild Mustangs. And it's also another issue with the military is they're so big on like, oh, you're feeling some type of way. Let me send you to a weekend retreat and you're going to be so much better after this weekend. Like, oh, that weekend didn't fix everything for you? That's crazy. Like, that weekend marriage retreat that didn't fix your marriage. Oh, wow. I'm shocked. Like it's not like these quick fixes, like
We're laughing, but we just talked about how many nonprofit organizations there are that do just that. And at some point, maybe it does affect the individual for that moment in time and there's a breakthrough opportunity. But there, to your point, maybe also that next step where they revert back to their old habits quickly rather than learning that new behavior.
I think it can be as detrimental sometimes. People go and they have an amazing time for a couple days and then
you
get back
yank
home.
on it.
Euphoric.
Yeah.
And then you may be good for a day or two, but now you're back in that same, all the problems, the bill. Like you never really get to learn new behavior that you can rely on.
Yeah. So that's why the 14 weeks, because also like that should be enough time for you to do the entire journaling process, if you're doing it the right way. Because I don't want it to be set up where, every day I've got all of this stuff scheduled for you. I would love for people to, wake up and do like some yoga and meditating and then spend like, the sunrise doing that and then with your Mustang and just hanging out. And it's not even going to be like, okay, you need to do this, this, and this with your Mustang today. Like, do what you feel, like, don't just be lazy, but I also want people to do what feels right for them. I feel like a lot of programs, they kind of have everything set up and it's very
rigid.
Yeah. And I just really don't want it to be that way. I want it to be just very comfortable and just them being able to, figure their shit out, and doing it with this horse. I do want people to be going to therapy, like a regular therapy.
Counseling.
I feel like, everybody can benefit.
Are you going to
from
provide that or?
So that's why I have made mine the way that it is so that I don't have to do like the clinical end of it.
Sure.
So, but everybody that's going to go through it, being a veteran, the VA is right there and there's going to be ways to figure all of that stuff out.
I could see this being an excellent program for somebody. We talk about decompressing and maybe the great opportunity rather than having to worry about taking 3 months away from, maybe if you have a family or. But, if you're thinking about and you're listening to something like this and you think this might be a great opportunity, but you're still on active duty and you're getting ready to make the transition, then plan for this type of activity. And I think that everybody needs to plan for their transition by setting aside enough money maybe to decompress for 12 months, find out who you are. And that this would be the excellent period of time, that 12 months or whatever that you've set aside to find yourself by going through a program like this that allows you to decompress, deal with the things that are, there that's poking at you and bothering you and everything else so that you can then be a better human and, as you transition out.
I mean, right now, obviously I don't have it set up that way. So I've got a girl that's active duty right now. She's going through it. And basically I'm just like, you need to have like 4 to 5 days that you can come here and dedicate a couple hours to spending with this horse.
So right now it's just a couple hours, but you're talking about bunkhouse. Then now you're talking 14 weeks every day.
Yeah, I mean, because I have so many people that message me and they're in California, Colorado, all of these places, and they want to come and do it. And I'm like, hey, we've got to wait for funding. Yeah, and it's like a funding thing with nonprofits.
Well,
I mean,
true.
Right now, everything that is going on there, like the 3 Mustangs that I got from a holding facility like a month or 2 ago, everything that I've built up, like that's all coming out of my pocket. So I'm like, I can't really afford to keep doing all of this stuff, so I have to wait for funding to be able to, build the bunkhouses or bring in an RV or do something, So that's
always a challenge with nonprofits, mainly because there is donor fatigue. And there's only so many donors who really will get engaged in a big buck way. Otherwise, you got to do the $5, $10, $100 that takes a long time to build.
Yeah.
If you can get those individuals who are big donors, well, then they're already probably donating their money from
Somewhere
tax
else.
advantages to certain ones. And sometimes they rotate and allow new ones to come in, but it's a relationship thing too.
Yeah.
They have to learn more about you, get to know you, hear your story, understand why this is passionate, because they're getting ready to invest serious dollars into it.
So it's
a
definitely
hard,
struggle.
long road.
Yeah. And it's brand new. I just got approved as a nonprofit in the 501c3 like a month ago.
Well, congratulations on that. That's difficult.
That's not easy. Yeah.
No, it's a freaking process.
It is.
So, the whole thing is a process. And I guess that's what gets frustrating too, because it's like all of these people that want to come and do it. And it's like, oh my gosh, like there is such a demand for this. And this could be such an amazing thing. But it's just, finding the right people who want to invest into it. And, now I'm trying to find grants and do stuff like that to get money. And there's ways. It's just, grants also cost money to apply for them.
write.
So so it's like,
If you find a good grant writer, though, that's the key, then they can pretty much write any grants out there. It's almost an art.
Yeah.
So, if you can find somebody like that can help you in that process, I think the struggle is real because you're trying to set up a program. You're really passionate about that, and I can hear it in your voice now because now it sounds like you have found your drive, the thing that's going to motivate you, and yet there's this thing called money that's holding it up.
Yep.
And yet what you may have to do is kind of, I don't know what they call it, prime the pump, by allowing individuals to come in and shape your program in a very different way in the beginning that may not be what your end game is, but phase one of what where you're headed. So your vision is here, but you have a phase right now that you're going to have to go through where you may have to charge maybe a little bit more from the individual so they have a stake in the game or something to come in, because it is a 501c3, but unfortunately we can only pay for this much. And you have to pay for your trip, you have to pay for your lodging, you have to pay for it to have a little bit of skin in the game. And we also ask for you to make a small donation of X.
Yep.
And that helps prime that pump, gets the exposure, puts the word out there, the word of mouth that starts coming, hey, I went through this program, that then starts attracting because people are going to want to see a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Have you really done this?
That's the hard part when it comes to
big donors.
These things, the modalities outside of what the VA offers.
Yes.
It's not insurable or covered by insurance, but it's going to be. Like we're working on this across the country. So to justify equine therapy and animal therapy, just like you do art therapy or all the other stuff that's out there that's not pills and sitting on the couch talking to a shrink.
Yeah.
And it's moving. It is moving. It's happening. Rutgers University is doing a big study where they're actually going to blood test the horses and the participants. It's all veterans with PTSD before and after. So they're going to have
that's awesome.
all the hormone levels, and they're going to say, this is exactly what happens. This is the result. This is the reoccurrence.
That's
of
what you'd have to do
systems.
for a grant. Typically, that's the kind of stuff that a grant's looking for.
So the industry's moving that way.
Yeah.
And it just, it takes time, and horses are expensive.
Even if that was all there, I like what you said, and that's the skin in the game. Because that's going to be, and that, because you're dedicating your time. You've got skin in the game for sure.
I've got a lot.
and ensuring that the people that are coming in are really dedicated to it. So
not looking for that free handout.
We talked about it earlier. You said bro vet, but the professional veteran, like trying to avoid that culture.
So that is what it's been very frustrating because everybody so far in the bro vet that has gotten a hold of me and been like, oh my gosh, like this is awesome. Like I want to help you. I want to get you connections. I want to do all this. It's all been, just a lot of talk. Mm-hmm. And then the moment that I won't come out, fly out and hang out and, party and do those kind of things, then, I get no connections. I get nothing. And they just will not help. So it's like they're really only trying to help you because they're trying to basically sleep with you is what it's happening in my end.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because, Ryan told me, he was like, people are only going to try and do stuff because they're going to want to sleep with you. And I was very offended. I was like, no, like people are going to want to help because this is like a badass
But
thing.
you always have to think what's in it for them.
Yeah. But then it's been so frustrating. Like there's been like 4 people so far that have gotten my hopes up like so high. And then because, I'm not willing to come out and party and do stupid things, they don't help. And I'm like, okay, so who are you really hurting here?
Right.
You're not hurting me. You're hurting the veterans that you're supposedly all about and live your life by. And that's what your entire Instagram and everything is about. Like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
Well, Kelly was referring to the professional veteran who uses these opportunities to.
They're on the circuit. They're on the circuit,
cool.
and you're going to be one of those circuits where it's like, wow, I can do this for 14 weeks and get this skill, and always under this guise of I'm an injured person, right? And then that's where the skin in the game comes in, where it's work. I got to pay my way. I don't think that's a bad idea at all.
Well, we were talking about Tom and Scott Spooner.
Yeah.
Their organization that they have, there's 2 sides of it. There's a nonprofit, but there's that for-profit side of it too that you pay for.
Yep.
And I think they have scholarships and stuff like that. But yeah, it's meant for you to have skin in this game.
Yeah.
Do you really want to be healed? Do you really want to be helped?
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think that'll be huge for you. I don't think there's a problem charging.
No, I just feel so bad. I'm like,
I think that's the stigma of
but
nonprofits.
You're helping them in the sense of even if they don't know it.
Yeah.
Providing that, even if you were flush with cash on this, I still think it's important because it forces them to get the skin in the game themselves because they may not realize it. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it's actually, you look at it and you position it in a way of not just, hey, you got to have skin in the game, but you do say that, but it's also a way to help fund and support this, not only for them, but for the future.
Yeah.
So, you're going to be a participant in this, and this money that you're providing is going to be helping you, but then also maybe some proceeds from that can also go to maintaining this facility and helping Kelly.
Yeah.
Because I can buy another Mustang for Kelly because now I've got you tied up with the Mustang and Paul tied up with the Mustang. I need a Mustang for Kelly who's coming in. Your money's seed money that pays for this, and it just rolls.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, if people are not willing to do that, maybe that's not what the kind of design program you're looking for. I think a lot of nonprofits out there look solely at, you can be for-profit nonprofit, by the way. There's nothing against the law saying you can't be for-profit as a nonprofit. It's just, are you fulfilling the mission of the 501c3?
Yeah.
That's what's critical. So with the money that you're receiving. So I think, in this sense, what we've gone to because of bad nonprofits out there that focus so much on demonstrating in a way that they're not about the mission, it has ruined the opportunities for programs like what you're describing here that could really help somebody.
Yeah.
So I think, again, with the donor burnout, think of a different model. Think of a model that allows you to do what you're trying to do, but it's not like you're waiting for that person that's going to pick up the phone and go, Angie, I'm your person. I've got cash sitting over here. I heard you on the Military podcast. I'm ready to write a blank check. That's probably not going to happen, although I have some great fans out there and great people that listen to the show. I don't know about fans. That seems kind of crazy.
But if you're listening.
Call Angie.
Well, I think I kind of disagree with that. There is some donor fatigue and there is a bad taste in some people's mouths about nonprofits, but that's my passion for the last 5 years, and I look at what some of the things that these places are able to accomplish and the generosity.
It's finding those individuals, though, is what I'm saying. It's harder to find those.
This is unique, though. This is these are unique opportunities. This isn't the donor fatigue. It might be on some of the other, like the ski trip, the hunt trip.
Sure.
This is a program that I don't think there's a lot of anything like it, right?
There's the only other nonprofit that is somewhat similar is it's like, I forget the name of it. It's like Mustang. It's like the prisons out west. Yeah. So there's one in like Arizona and California and something. So this nonprofit brings untouched Mustangs and they bring them into the prison, and there's certain people that get to be a part of the program, and then the inmates are the ones to do the journaling process, and like the studies and stuff behind them is absolutely amazing. Like the chances of an inmate going back to prison after being part of this program are almost zero, where
That's awesome.
Usually really after
awesome.
somebody goes to prison, they get out, they're going to go back. Where if you look at these numbers, like basically none of the inmates who go through this program go back to prison. Like it completely rewires you and just gives you like such a sense of purpose and does like all these amazing things. Like it's
That's your proof of
insane.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's your data. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your proof of
what I've
concept
been
that already
using
exists.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got a dumb question. What happens to the? I'm sorry. I was
just going to ask.
What happens to the
exactly
Mustang?
what you're going to ask.
The Mustangs.
After they've been gentled.
That's like the same thing that I'm going to do at the end of my process is what they do. So at the end, they hold an auction, and it's a public auction, and they come out and they auction them off, and they also adopt them out to like the Border Patrol and stuff. So these Mustangs that are literally built to be in this rough terrain go and work for the Border Patrol and go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then your auction's going to feed right back into the program.
Yeah. So I'm going to have it like the people who go through, if you have a really strong connection and you want to stay in the horses, then they have the first opportunity to adopt that horse. If they don't want to adopt, then it's either going to be, we're going to hold, auctions, or I will adopt it out to an approved home, or trying to do like the Border Patrol and stuff and get them like actual jobs.
It's really cool too, though, if you could. I mean, you guys probably don't use Mustangs, Paul, and some of the stuff that you're doing in therapy.
we do. Braveheart does.
So if you transition from here, I've got it now, a Mustang that's now good.
Yep.
Oh, and I'm going to put them in another program where you can help another veteran.
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Now you're taking it from the wild to the calm, and now making a purpose for that Mustang.
No, the people are doing that.
Yeah.
On a small scale, people are doing that. They're gentling Mustangs, or they're adopting Mustangs that have been gentled, and they're using them in therapy programs.
Yeah.
Or they're using them in recreational programs or what have you.
And if you get tapped into those resources, then there's where the money, and I cut you off earlier or you're talking about that, but maybe you can expand on what you were going to say if you can remember. But you were, I think, you disagreed with me about donor fatigue, and there are individuals that are in this space for sure.
Yeah. No, the resources are out there and the will is out there. That's the unique thing about the horse world, is that it's a strong community. They believe very strongly in taking care of animals. They believe very strongly in taking care of veterans and other people like that. Like it's a compassionate and pragmatic community, and it's not inexpensive to keep horses. So the resources are there, and it's a huge industry. I mean, and the people that make feed, the people that make equipment, things like that, they're not disinterested in supporting these kind of causes. So it's, in 5 years, I've seen Bravehearts build a massive equine facility, and I've seen people build massive riding arenas. And Bravehearts is one of my favorite places to work with. They had us do a cutting clinic on cutting horses down in Oklahoma with the best trainers in the world, 16 of them with 16 vets with, God knows how much.
For those who don't know what that is,
Yeah, cutting is, cutting and sorting cows, and it's something that you do competitively. And they donated all their time. We were at the Cowan Ranch, this beautiful ranch. They put us up, fed us, and taught us how to do real cowboy shit with real cows. It was amazing. And none of the vets paid a dime, and they were happy to do it, and we were happy to be there, and it was mutually beneficial because it's their opportunity to give back too.
But it's just finding those people that is like the hardest part for me, because I've just been a very small fish.
We'll connect.
Yeah.
We'll connect, because I've got people that want to do the programs I'm involved in, but they're in the Carolinas, or what have you. So it all just kind of works out that way.
This cutting thing that you're talking about was really cool when you were describing it last night, because then if you think of, the horse cutting, that's where you see it. The cattle goes left, the horse goes right to cut it off. And then, it goes, the cattle turns, it does the same thing.
You're trying to outmaneuver, you're trying to juke and jive with a cow.
And many times we were talking about how the horse actually is in full control, and the rider, for the most part, may be just letting go. And you think about that from a therapy standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
This is deep
massive
stuff.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's with a lot of like things with horses, like barrel racing. I do a lot of barrel racing, and I cannot tell you how many times I get in my horse's way because I think that I need to control it. And my horse knows exactly what he's doing, and we mess up because I'm like trying to control it. So it's like, just trying to freaking let
horse
go
is the
and
athlete.
trust the horse that it knows his job and it's not going to mess up. But that's a very, very hard thing to do.
It is hard.
Especially when you're flying.
But it's good.
When you listen to this, and especially based on what we were talking about earlier, post-traumatic stress, people trying to find ways to heal, how much we're trying to, in this show specifically too, is, tell people that's what you need to go and do. You came, especially also, you came from dog handling, canine handling, and stuff like that, and you're very familiar with animals. What does this mean to you? What does it sound like?
I think it's huge. I mean, I guess, from a therapy perspective, it's awesome, but I also hear potentially job opportunity for people, right? This is a new skill that people can.
You're going to need handlers, ranch hands. Or
I'm talking about the veteran coming through.
Oh, yeah.
That's a potential direction for them to go that they would never otherwise have an opportunity to do.
Yep. And that's kind of what that prison does too. They offer like farrier, like all kinds of different things, so they can take that once they get out of prison. Now you're a farrier, so now you have a job skill. Like, go work, go do something.
Yep, that's what I hear. I hear, the therapy in the program, but also, I'd love that opportunity. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. And I know we talked about earlier with the dogs, having a dog overseas, coming back from a mission, and, being able to have that there. And I can see it with the horses. You guys have the experience. I don't, but there's just that, and they're so wild. Even a tamed horse, it's kind of like having a Malinois where it knows how to bite. It knows how to do. This is a machine, an athlete, right? It's different than your pet at home. You know, and when you work with them, there's a real sense of purpose. It's a totally different beast. Yeah. So I could imagine horses would be very similar, especially something like this.
Yeah.
A good illustration of this and like how powerful this can be. Bravehearts, they're the largest veteran equine assisted therapy outfit in the world. They serve a ton of vets, but they also do a 20-mile ride in select cities called Trail to Zero. So, and we had a Mustang in Times Square.
Hell yeah.
It was freaking awesome. And these guys are from Vietnam, women that have, they have their experiences that cause trauma in the military. Like, these are people that, some of us can't talk to people. We can't be in crowds. We can't do this thing. But they've been working with these animals for sometimes years. And they've gotten to this place where they're in Times Square. We're surrounded by people, just like it's New Year's Eve. And there's, the mounted police are with us. It's chaos. But this person who like maybe had all the PTSD symptoms, couldn't go out, couldn't talk, couldn't interact, couldn't do crowds. They're there. Yeah. They're with their animal and they're doing it. And they're doing it for a good cause. We reach millions of people. Crazy. But it's because they have that animal and because of the people they met, because you can't train a horse alone. You can't raise a horse alone. You could get it done, but really you got to have help. If you ever want to leave your farm or you ever have, it's just not something you can do solo. So you end up forming these relationships of trust with the other people. And
a community, right?
It's exactly. And it allows them to go and do something like that. And then at the end of the day, we're riding through Central Park and I'm talking to a Sikh on a carriage with his giant draft horse and I'm sitting on a quarter horse. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. It's like the most American thing I can do right now. It's awesome. So
it's a beautiful thing.
It is, and that's how far you can go. Is you can go from somebody that's isolating and is damaging their relationships because they're not talking to the people that love them, and they're affecting their professional life because they're not able to get out and go to work and perform, to riding through a crowded city and speaking to people on behalf of the veterans that are taking their own lives.
What I like about this a lot too, though, is that you're using a Mustang, which anybody, if I said Mustang, what is that? When you think of a Mustang as a horse, what is it? What's the first thing that comes to mind? It's a rebel, an outlaw, on your own and all that kind of stuff. And what a great animal then to pair.
Yeah.
Again,
American Mustangs and American veterans. Like, they're literally the two freaking coolest things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's our horse.
Yep.
like collectively. I mean, they're on BLM land. That's our, if you think of animals as property, like it's ours. It's like, we got to take care of them. And I think that's probably why it resonates so much with you and other veterans. It's like, the vets are the same, like we got to take care of these guys.
Well, I think history-wise, wasn't there a lot of Native Americans that actually chose the Mustangs, especially out west? And I guess it was maybe a Montana, Wyoming. I don't know if it was the Apache or which tribe it was. I'm curious now that we're talking about this to see if there was something there as well, that they chose that specific horse because of maybe some rites of passage, and maybe I'm going too deep, but I just wonder, if there was something there. When you chose a Mustang, it meant something if you saw, from their heritage.
And it could make it. That's the thing.
Yeah, Mustangs are like they're like, it's survival of the fittest, like they are so durable and strong. Like it is crazy. You take a Mustang and then you take like a domesticated, like $100,000 horse that is pumped for like all kinds of supplements and trained. That Mustang is going to outdo that horse any day of the week, like in an actual situation, like out on terrain and doing stuff. Like they're so like strong. Like it's amazing. It's crazy. Their feet are amazing. Like they're just built to last. And like, it's so cool.
So what's the name of the nonprofit for people who might be listening?
The Veteran Mustang Mission.
Okay. And how can they find it?
So on my Instagram, and then I also have an Instagram that I just started for the Veteran Mustang Mission. So it's Veteran_Mustang_Mission. And then my Instagram is Angie_rides. And that's like in my little bio right there too.
So website or anything?
The website is in the making right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So how do they reach out if they listen and they want to donate? They go, hey, I want to reach out.
So if they get a hold of me, I've got,
DM type thing.
Yeah. I've got everything set up through my bank with the EIN number and stuff. So once the website is up, you'll obviously be able to donate on there. And then we're going to start doing like some shirts and stuff like that to start funding the program that way.
A lot of times people are looking for information just about like, where's the money going to go to? How, how's it going to be used and all of that. So I'm assuming this website that's going to be coming out very soon will give you all those types of details. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, any money that we get is literally spent to feed and take care of the horses, to maintain the property, even building like the corrals. When you first get a Mustang, you have to have, like a 6-foot corral, and like they're nuts. They'll like jump that crap. So, I mean, it's expensive to start it all up. So horses are not cheap. Like Paul said, they're not cheap at all.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people may not understand that when you start up a nonprofit, you're really giving up something already. A for-profit entity, you're taking in the profits. It's your business. When it's a nonprofit, it's no longer your business.
Yeah.
It is a mission to support, and you have a board of directors that leads that mission. It's a very different. So you're already, that there was something that you were passionate about that you could have started as a for-profit and led it down a very different path, but you decided to let that go. But you created the foundation in a way with the vision that hopefully your board understands your vision, that they can take it to the next level.
Yep.
And that says a lot when you're able to do that and give of yourself, and you still have to be at arm's length in some ways, because, even though you're a founder, there's no such legal title as founder.
Yeah.
It's board.
Yeah. That was
mission.
the scary thing. Because I was like, man, I got to make sure that my board of directors are people that I can be like, hey,
trust, and
can we please do this way? Like, so, but yeah, I mean, my board is awesome. It's all female veterans. So they're on board 100%. Like they're all about what I'm about. So I feel like it's good.
Angie, thanks for coming on the Mentors Military Podcast.
Thank you for having me.